The ties between Edo, Uraga, and Obusei, where Hokusai was active during the 18th and 19th centuries, plus Shimane. When we think of Hokusai, the Edo ukiyo-e artist, we think of Hokusai manga and 36 views of Mount Fuji, with the Great Wave off Kanagawa being its iconic image. The former was published intermittently in 15 volumes from 1814, Bunka 11, until 1878, Meiji 11, after Hokusai's death. The Mount Fuji series consists of 46 prints depicting Mount Fuji, created around 1830 to 1834, tempo 1-5, when Hokusai was in his early 70s. His work then continued with 100 Views of Mount Fuji, concluding the series. However, around that time, a family dispute led to an unexpected accident, forcing him to move from Edo to Uraga and hide for several years. And then, a few years later, he returned to Edo, only to leave the city once again. From the age of 83 to 88 in his later years, he traveled back and forth between Obusei in Shinshu and Edo, leading a whirlwind of activity and a turbulent life. Looking back on his ups and downs, I have summarized it below. And for some reason, in the 21st century, Hokusai's largest collection moved from Tokyo to Shimane. Now, let's get to the main point. The title is Hokusai's 7 Falls, 8 Rises. Introduction. The first fall occurred at the age of 28, 1788, 10 May 8. The second time, 6 years later, was at the age of 34, 1794, Kansei 6. Then, 33 years later, the third time was at the age of 66, 1826, Bunsei 9. 8 years after that, the fourth time was at the age of 75, 1835, Tenpo 6. Then, another 8 years later, the fifth time was at the age of 83, 1842, Tenpo 13. And finally, 7 years later, the sixth and last time was at the age of 90, 1849, Ka 2. However, there was actually one more fall before the first one. What could it be? In fact, the 0th fall, before the first one, was an experience he had shortly after birth in Edo, but he probably only vaguely remembers it. However, that memory resurfaced 75 years later, and for some reason, he suddenly disappeared from Edo to Uraga. The first 3 times the setting is Edo, but the fourth time it's Uraga, and the fifth time, surprisingly, it's Obusei in Shinshu, far away. And for the final 6th time, it returns to Edo, to the familiar Asakusa. You probably already know the punchline of the title, but what about the 7 in 7 Falls, 8 Rises, and the 8 in 8 Rises? Chapter 1. Now, what was the first setback? After growing from Tokitaro to Tetsuzo, Hokusai, after working as an apprentice at a lending library and then as an apprentice engraver, became a painter at the age of 18 or 19, fulfilling his long-held dream. This was the time when the young Hokusai, known as Katsukawa Shunro, was actively working under Katsukawa Shunsho, who specialized in actor portraits. 10 years after becoming an apprentice, at the age of 28, he was bullied by his senior apprentice, Katsukawa Shunko, who was jealous of him. Shunro was asked by the owner of a newly renovated bookstore to create a sign to be displayed in front of the store. While he was overseeing the completion of the sign, his senior apprentices appeared, belittled the finished sign, destroyed it, and subjected him to a bullying incident. A few days later, his master, Katsukawa Shunsho, also lost patience with him and disliked him, resulting in his expulsion. Young Shunro was at a loss, having lost his job. The trouble with his senior apprentices was the result of accumulated jealousy and envy within the school, finally exploding, while his master's dismissal was due to the discovery that he had been learning painting styles from artists of other schools. In short, the cause was jealousy, which escalates from envy, something that happens in any group. Apparently, the young Hokusai, or Shunro, was handsome and tall, and stood out more than anyone else. Furthermore, he had an exceptionally strong desire to improve his painting skills and a very single-minded personality.